I walked into my home, expecting everything to be as it always was, only to find the very foundation of my life crumbling in front of me. There, in our bed, was my wife, Sarah, the woman I had loved for years, with another man. My heart sank as I realized this was no accident. This was the moment my life was torn apart, exposing secrets I'd never imagined she could keep from me. What followed was a journey through betrayal, heartbreak, and the painful process of finding myself again. Sarah and I had been married for 8 years. To the world, we were a perfect couple. We met in college, two dreamers with big ambitions. She had always been a passionate one, the literature student with books in her hands and a sparkle in her eye when she talked about her love for stories. I was a more practical one, focused on engineering, numbers, and blueprints. She made me feel like I could be more than just the sum of equations, like I could be someone who mattered beyond the work I did. We got married shortly after graduation, vowing to build a life together. I truly thought we meant it. But over time, there were small things I brushed off. The late nights she claimed were for book clubs or hanging out with friends. The way she always kept her phone face down, or how she'd step out of the room to take certain calls. I asked her about these things, of course, and she always reassured me with a gentle smile, claiming it was nothing, just work or something trivial with her sister. I trusted her because I wanted to. Doubting her felt like doubting myself, and I never questioned the life we had built. I worked tirelessly, hoping to give us a life we had always dreamed of, a family, a big house, kids running around in a yard with a dog. Sarah always seemed supportive. She kissed me goodbye in the mornings and had a warm dinner ready when I came home. But there was an emptiness in her that I couldn't name. Her laughter sounded hollow, and I could see it in her eyes when she told me she loved me. Something was off, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I told myself it was work stress, or maybe I was just too focused on my career. I planned to fix it, a weekend getaway, just the two of us, but before I could, everything came crashing down. I had forgotten my laptop at home one day, a small mistake for someone as meticulous as me. I drove back during my lunch break, expecting an empty house, since Sarah worked part-time at a bookstore. But when I pulled into the driveway, I noticed her car was there. At first, I thought she was sick or had taken the day off. But when I stepped inside, the house was eerily quiet. There was no answer when I called out. Then I heard something upstairs, laughter, but not just hers. A man's laughter. I climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. The bedroom door was ajar, and when I pushed it open, I froze. There they were, Sarah, tangled in the sheets with a man I had never seen before. My world stopped. My heart hammered in my chest, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak. She saw me first, her face draining of color, her mouth opening. But no words came out. The man scrambled to pull on his clothes, mumbling apologies as he hurried past me, but I didn't even acknowledge him. My eyes were fixed on her. How long? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She didn't answer, just pulled the sheet tighter around herself, tears welling up in her eyes. I asked again, louder this time, the anger rise within me. She looked away. That was when I knew this wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't something that could be explained away. It had been years of lies, years of betrayal. She had been living a life I didn't know. I walked out, unable to stay in that room, in that house. My mind was reeling, replaying every moment of our marriage. How many times had she lied to me? How many nights had I slept beside her, clueless, while she carried the secret? The betrayal wasn't just in that moment. It was in the years she spent pretending everything was fine. I ended up at a park, a place we had visited often early in our marriage. We used to sit by the lake and talk about our future. Now, I sat alone, staring at the water, trying to figure out who I was without her. The man I had been, trusting, hopeful, devoted, felt like a stranger. I didn't cry, not then. The pain was too raw, too big for tears. It pressed on my chest, suffocating me. When I finally returned home, Sarah was gone. She left a note on the kitchen counter, her handwriting shaky. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. That was all. No explanation. No plea for forgiveness. Just those two words like they could fix anything. I crumpled the note and threw it across the room. Sorry didn't change the fact that my life had been a lie. Sorry didn't give me back the years I had spent loving someone who didn't love me the same way. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, staring at the walls, trying to understand how I had missed all the signs. Was I too trusting? Too focused on my work? Or had she just been that good at hiding the truth? The questions looped in my mind, each one cutting deeper than the last. I thought about the man in our bed, but he was just a face. The real betrayal had come from Sarah. She had chosen this, over and over again, while I built a life around her. By morning, I knew I couldn't stay in that house. Not with the memories, not with the ghosts of what we had been. I packed a bag and left, driving to a cheap motel on the edge of town. I needed space, time to think, time to figure out how to live with the truth. Sarah had been my world, but that world was gone, and I had no idea how to start over. The motel room was grimy, smelling of stale cigarettes and regret. I lay on the lumpy mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling. It had been 3 days since I left the house, 3 days since I'd walked into that room and saw Sarah's pale, guilty face. I hadn't heard from her, no call, no text, just silence. The kind of silence that weighed on me, suffocating me. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. There were messages from friends, coworkers, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. How do you explain to someone that your life has fallen apart, that the person you trusted the most had been living a lie? I couldn't bring myself to face anyone. I kept replaying the moment I walked into that room, the shock on Sarah's face, the man's hasty exit, but most of all, the years leading up to it. The late nights, the excuses, the way she'd pull away when I tried to hold her. I had been blind, or maybe I had chosen not to see. Either way, the truth was a blade, and it cut deeper every time I thought about how long she'd been lying. I felt like I was barely holding on, as if I were a machine running on broken parts that had finally failed. The reality of my situation hit me hard, and I couldn't even look my family in the face just yet. I couldn't bear to see the pity in their eyes. So I stayed in the motel, forcing myself to eat, to shower, to keep moving, to do anything that might distract me from the ache inside. I started running each morning, pushing my body until my lungs felt like they might burst, hoping the pain of the run would somehow outrun the emotional storm inside me. But it didn't. The pain just followed me, gnawing away at me. I avoided everything that reminded me of her, the house, the friends we shared, anything that had once been ours. But no matter how much I tried to escape, the truth lingered. It had become a part of me, like a scar that wasn't healing. One night, I found myself back at the park near the lake, sitting on the bench we used to sit on together. The wood was worn now, the place a little more faded than I remembered. I thought about the man I used to be, full of hope, believing in the future, in us. He felt like a stranger to me now. But in that moment, I also thought about the man I was becoming, someone who had survived the worst kind of betrayal. I didn't know yet who I would be when the pain didn't feel so raw, but there was a flicker of something stirring inside me. It wasn't hope, not yet, but it was defiance. I wasn't going to let her choices define me. Back at the motel, I started to write. Not to her, not to anyone, just to myself. I needed to get all of it out, all the pain, all the anger. Writing became my way of sorting through the mess of emotions I couldn't make sense of. At first, the words came slowly, but eventually, they came faster. It was the first time I felt like I had any control since the day my world had shattered. That night, I realized this was the start of something. I didn't know it then, but it was the beginning of rebuilding, of learning how to live with the weight of what she'd done to me. The motel was a temporary refuge, a place to hide away from everything that had been my life before. But hiding doesn't heal. I knew I couldn't stay there forever. Weeks passed and the anger inside me simmered, but something else started to emerge. I was tired of being the broken man. I wanted to be someone else. Someone strong. Someone who didn't let her lies define who he was. I took the first step by finding a small apartment. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom place with bare walls and a view of a quiet street. But it was mine. No memories of Sarah. No echoes of our life together. I moved in with only the essentials, clothes, books, and some kitchen items. The rest, the furniture we had picked out together, the pictures, the little keepsakes from our marriage, I left behind. They felt like relics from a life that wasn't real. I hired a lawyer to handle the divorce. Sarah didn't fight it. She signed the papers without a word, her signature sealing the final chapter of our marriage. We didn't speak again, everything going to the lawyers in a cold, impersonal way. I thought I would feel something when it was all over, maybe relief, maybe sadness. But all I felt was emptiness, like closing a book I'd never wanted to read. She was legally gone from my life, but the scars she left behind would never fade so easily. I kept running every morning, pushing myself to get stronger. The rhythm of my footsteps became my therapy, a way to combat the storm in my mind. My body grew leaner, stronger, but my mind still struggled to catch up. I started eating better too, cooking simple meals in my new kitchen. I wasn't a chef, but there was something grounding about preparing food for myself, about caring for myself in ways I hadn't in years. It was a small act, but it reminded me that I was worth taking care of, even if Sarah hadn't thought so. Work became my escape. I threw myself into projects, staying late, taking on more responsibility. My boss noticed and gave me praise. I didn't tell him it was because I had nothing else in my life to focus on. But it wasn't just about filling time. I was good at my job. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to feel proud of that. I wasn't just Sarah's husband, the man who'd been betrayed. I was me, capable and competent, building something with my own hands. I started writing again, not just the angry, cathartic pages I'd written at the motel, but something more deliberate. Stories, reflections, pieces of myself I hadn't explored before. I didn't show them to anyone. I didn't even plan to. They were just for me, a way to process what I was going through and to start rebuilding who I was. Through writing, I found fragments of the man I had been before all of this. The one who dreamed big, who believed in possibilities. He was still there, buried under the pain, and I was slowly coaxing him back out. One evening, I went back to the coffee shop I had visited when I was looking for answers. I sat in the same corner, but this time, I wasn't searching for any more Sarah's secrets. I was reading a novel I'd picked up on a whim. A woman at the next table smiled and asked what I was reading. We talked for a few minutes, just small talk about books and coffee. Nothing heavy. Her name was Claire, and she was kind. Her laughter was warm, without any hidden agendas. I didn't ask for her number. I wasn't ready for that, but the conversation stayed with me. It reminded me that there were connections out there waiting to be made when I was ready. A few days later, I ran into Sarah by chance at a grocery store. She was standing in the produce aisle, picking out apples. For a moment, I thought about turning away, but I didn't. I walked past her, nodded when she looked up. Her eyes widened, and she started to say something, but I kept walking. I didn't need her words, her apologies. I had spent too long chasing her truth. Now, my truth was enough. That night, I sat in my apartment, the lights low, a glass of whiskey in my hand. I thought about the years I had lost, the trust she had shattered. The pain was still there, a quiet ache in my chest, but it no longer consumed me. I had started to rebuild my life. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't whole, but it was real. A life that was mine, not ours. I thought about the park, the bench by the lake, and the dreams we'd shared there. They weren't gone entirely, just reshaped by what I'd been through. And those dreams were still mine to chase. I opened my notebook and started writing again, not about her, not about the betrayal, but about what came next. A story about a man starting over, find his way in a world that had tried to break him. It wasn't finished, and neither was I. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was moving forward, not just surviving. The weight of her choices was still there, but I was stronger than it now. I could carry it and keep going. I stood at my window, looking out at the street below. The world was still turning, full of people living their lives, full of possibilities I couldn't see yet. I wasn't the man I had been, and I wasn't sure who I would become, but I was here. I was breathing. I was ready to find out. And that, For now was enough.